Have you ever discovered that your entire life was built on lies? That the people you trusted most had stolen not just your money, but your very identity? I'm about to tell you the most devastating story of family betrayal you've ever heard. How I uncovered a 30-year conspiracy that destroyed everything I thought I knew about myself, and how I got the most satisfying revenge imaginable. This isn't just about catching cheaters or exposing liars. This is about a woman who discovered her husband was sleeping with her sister. Her mother had stolen over $500,000 from her, and the shocking truth that her entire family had been covering up a murder for 3 decades. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, if you've ever suspected that people close to you were hiding something big, then buckle up, because this story will show you exactly how far some people will go to protect their secrets, and what happens when those secrets finally come to light. The front door of our Oakwood Heights colonial clicked shut with the same whisper it had made countless times before. I stood in the marble foyer, my Louboutin heels echoing against the imported Italian stone as I fumbled through my Hermès purse for the 3rd time. Nothing. My Maserati keys weren't there. The afternoon Connecticut sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling, windows casting long shadows across our perfectly appointed home. I'd rushed out to make it to Eleanor's birthday lunch at the Greenwich Country Club, and in my haste to change my diamond earrings, the ones Blake had given me for our anniversary, I must have left the keys upstairs. The house felt different in the golden afternoon light, too quiet, too still, like a movie set waiting for the actors to return. Usually, I'd call out to Blake, let him know I was home early from lunch. But something held me back today. Some instinct I couldn't name. Maybe it was the way the silence seemed to press against my skin, or how the shadows fell wrong across the mahogany staircase. Our home was a testament to Blake's success as a hedge fund manager. Persian rugs, crystal chandeliers, original oil paintings that cost more than most people's cars. But today, it felt like a beautiful trap. I slipped off my heels, the coolness of the marble seeping through my silk stockings as I padded toward the grand staircase. Each step felt deliberate, careful, as if I was approaching something dangerous. I reached the top of the stairs and turned toward our master bedroom, the same room where Blake and I had planned our future together. The door was slightly ajar, and through the gap, I could see movement. My heart did a small flutter of anticipation. Maybe Blake was home early from his office in Manhattan. Maybe we could finally talk about the distance that had grown between us over the past months, the way he'd become cold and distracted. Maybe we could recapture what we'd lost. But as I approached, voices drifted through the crack in the door. 2 voices that made my blood turn to ice and my world tilt sideways. One was Blake's, low and intimate in a way I hadn't heard him speak to me in what felt like forever. She has no idea, does she? The other voice made my knees weak with shock. Victoria's voice, soft and almost pitying, drifted from our bedroom, like poison smoke. My sister, my twin sister, speaking in our sacred space like she belonged there. I pressed myself against the wall, my hands trembling as I fought to breathe quietly, my heart hammering so loud I was sure they'd hear it. Through the narrow opening, I could see them on our king-sized bed, the one Blake and I had picked out, together at Restoration Hardware. Blake's Armani shirt was unbuttoned, his tie discarded on the floor, and Victoria's long dark hair spilled across the pillow I'd slept on just hours before. Madison's always been so naive, Blake replied, his fingers trailing along Victoria's bare arm with casual intimacy that made me sick. She actually believed all those late nights at the office stories. She believed me when I said I needed space to work on our marriage. She believed everything, just like when we were kids. Victoria laughed, a sound like breaking crystal that echoed through my chest. Remember how easy it was to convince her that Eleanor loved her just as much as me? How she never questioned why she looked nothing like either of us. Madison always was the trusting type. It made everything so much simpler. My legs gave out completely. I slid down the textured wallpaper, my back scraping against the surface as I sank to the Persian runner, each word hitting me like physical blows that left me gasping. Speaking of Eleanor, Blake's voice took on a different tone, more businesslike and calculating. "When are you going to tell Madison the truth about what Richard's will really said?" The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Victoria's voice turned sharp, dangerous. "Our father's will," she corrected with emphasis. "And why would I tell her anything? She's getting exactly what she deserves. Nothing. The inheritance money is exactly where it belongs, with his real family." My world shattered completely. The walls seemed to close in as I pressed my fist against my mouth to keep from crying out, tasting blood where my teeth cut into my knuckle. Letters? Inheritance? Dad had died 3 years ago, leaving everything to Eleanor according to the lawyers. Or so I'd been told by the very people who were now casually discussing keeping secrets from me. I don't remember how I got to my car. One moment I was crumpled on the hallway floor of our Oakwood Heights home, and the next, I was sitting behind the wheel of my Maserati in our circular driveway, staring at the house that had been my sanctuary for 5 years. The Italian leather seats felt cold against my skin as my hands shook, gripping the steering wheel like an anchor. Victoria's words echoed in my mind like a death knell. She's getting exactly what she deserves. Not what she thought I deserved, but what I actually deserved. The implication was clear. I wasn't entitled to anything because I wasn't really part of the family. But that was impossible, wasn't it? I had birth certificates, baby photos, 28 years of memories of Eleanor braiding my hair and reading me bedtime stories. But even as I tried to convince myself it was all lies, pieces began falling into place like a horrific puzzle. The way Eleanor's face would go blank and distant when I asked about my early childhood, how she and Victoria shared private jokes and knowing looks that I never understood. How I'd always felt like an outsider in my own family, watching from the sidelines as they connected in ways that seemed to exclude me entirely. The way I looked nothing like either of them. My olive skin and dark eyes so different from their fair complexions and blue eyes. I'd always been told I took after some distant relative, but now I wondered if there was a much simpler explanation, one that everyone knew except me. I drove aimlessly through the winding roads of Greenwich, past manicured lawns and colonial mansions that housed Connecticut's elite. The autumn leaves were just beginning to turn, painting the landscape in brilliant oranges and reds that seemed to mock my devastation. Eventually, I found myself at Riverside Memorial Gardens, where Dad was buried beneath an imposing granite headstone that read, "Richard Blackwood, beloved husband and father." The irony wasn't lost on me now. I knelt beside the cold stone, my silk dress absorbing the dampness from the grass, and whispered the question that was tearing me apart. "What did you do, Dad? What did you do to me?" The cemetery was peaceful, filled with ancient oaks and the distant sound of traffic from the Merritt Parkway. My phone buzzed with a text from Blake. "Where are you? Thought you'd be back by now. Eleanor's been calling." The casual concern in his message made my stomach turn. How long had they been planning this deception? How long had I been living as the unwitting star of their elaborate lie? Another text appeared. "Everything okay? You seemed off when you left this morning." Off. As if my entire world hadn't just imploded. As if I hadn't discovered that my husband was sleeping with my sister, and they were both involved in some conspiracy about money I apparently should have inherited. The audacity of his fake concern was breathtaking. I drove to Eleanor's house in the historic district of Greenwich, the modest Tudor where I'd grown up believing I belonged. The contrast with my current lifestyle was stark. This was old Connecticut. Money. Understated elegance rather than flashy displays of wealth. Eleanor was waiting in her spotless kitchen, her silver hair perfectly styled despite being 62 today. She wore a cream-colored cashmere sweater and pearls, every inch the refined Connecticut matriarch. "Madison, there you are," she said. But her smile didn't reach her sharp blue eyes. "I was starting to worry when you didn't come back after lunch." Her voice carried that familiar tone of controlled disappointment that had shaped so much of my childhood. Sorry, Eleanor. I got held up with some errands. I couldn't bring myself to call her mom anymore, not with Victoria's words still echoing in my head. She studied my face with those penetrating eyes that had never looked quite like mine, and I could see her cataloging my expression, looking for signs of trouble. You look pale, darling. Are you feeling all right? The endearment felt like a knife between my ribs. Just tired, I managed, sitting at the kitchen table where I'd done homework as a child, where I'd told her about my first kiss, where I'd cried about college rejections and celebrated acceptances. Now it felt like sitting in a stranger's house, surrounded by the debris of a life that might never have been real. Can I ask you something, Eleanor? The question came out steadier than I felt. Of course, sweetheart. The word felt poisonous now. Do you have any pictures of me as a baby? Like really early ones from the hospital when I was born? Something flickered across her face so quickly I almost missed it. Fear, guilt, calculation. Her hands, which had been steady on her coffee cup, began to tremble almost imperceptibly. You know I do, Madison. They're in the albums upstairs in my bedroom. We've looked at them together dozens of times. But her voice was different now, careful and measured. Not those ones, I pressed. I mean from the actual hospital. The first day I was born, medical records, birth documentation. Eleanor's coffee cup slipped from her hands and shattered against the pristine kitchen tiles, sending brown liquid spreading across the white surface like a stain that would never come out. The sound echoed through the small kitchen like a gunshot. Madison, why would you ask that? Her voice was barely above a whisper, and I could see her composure cracking like ice under pressure. I was thinking about family history, I lied, surprised by how easily the deception came. For when Blake and I have children, medical background, that sort of thing. The excuse sounded hollow even to me, but Eleanor's reaction told me everything I needed to know. Her face had gone ashen, and her hands were shaking openly now. Madison, please tell me what's really going on. She gripped the edge of the granite countertop for support, and I could see the woman I'd thought was my mother aging 10 years in front of me. Her perfectly composed mask was finally slipping, revealing something vulnerable and terrified underneath. Who is my real mother? The words hung in the air between us like a confession. Eleanor sagged against the counter, her knees buckling slightly. How did you find out? She whispered. So it's true. My voice cracked on the words. Please, Eleanor, please just tell me the truth. I can't live with these lies anymore. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks, ruining her perfect makeup. Your father was married before, to Sophia Delacroix. She died when you were 6 months old. The kitchen spun around me as the truth I dreaded hearing finally emerged. And you were? I already knew the answer, but I needed to hear her say it. I was his secretary, she said, the words rushing out like she'd been holding them back for decades. We'd been having an affair for 2 years before Sophia got pregnant with you. When she died in that car accident, someone had to take care of you. Richard was falling apart, completely devastated. So I moved in. We got married when you were 2 years old. And Victoria? I asked, though I was dreading the answer. Victoria is my daughter, mine and Richard's. She's 18 months, younger than you. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. We just told everyone you were twins. It was easier than explaining the complicated truth. Easier than admitting that we'd destroyed a marriage and stolen a dead woman's child. The cruelty of it took my breath away. They'd erased not just my mother's memory, but my very identity, turning me into Victoria's twin to make their lies more convenient. So, we're not twins. No, sweetheart. Vanessa is 18 months younger than you. But we thought it would be simpler. What about Dad's will? I asked, my voice barely steady. What about the inheritance? Eleanor's face went completely white, and I watched her grip the counter tighter. What about it? She asked, but her voice was shaking. What did it really say, Eleanor? Not the version you told me about, but what Richard actually wrote. She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, so softly, I almost didn't hear her. He left half of everything to you. The house, the savings, the life insurance policy, half to you, half to Victoria. The admission hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. But you told me he left everything to you. You said there wasn't enough money to go around. I told you. What I needed to tell you. Her voice was getting stronger now, more defensive. You had Blake. You had your own life, your own future. Victoria needed security. She needed to know she was taken care of. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed off the kitchen walls. And I didn't? I didn't need security? You were always so strong, Madison, so independent and capable. Victoria was more fragile, more vulnerable. She needed the money more than you did. Eleanor's justification was breathtaking in its selfishness. You mean she was more yours? I said quietly. She was your real daughter, so she deserved my inheritance. Eleanor's silence was answer enough. I stood up on shaking legs. I need to see the original will, and I need to see my birth certificate, my real birth certificate. Eleanor's shoulders sagged in defeat. They're in Richard's study, in the safe, behind the bookshelf. The combination is his birthday. I walked through the house that had never really been mine, past photographs of a family I'd never really belonged to, toward truths I'd never wanted to know. But as I reached the study door, Eleanor's voice stopped me cold. Madison, you have to understand. Everything I did because I loved him. I loved Richard so much I would have done anything to keep him. I turned back to look at her. This woman who'd given me life and taken it away in the same breath. What about Sophia? Did you love her too when you were sleeping with her husband? Eleanor's face crumpled completely. She was dying anyway, she whispered. She was dying of cancer, and Richard was so lonely, and I was there. The words made something inside me break completely. Not just my heart, but something deeper. The part of me that had always tried to see the good in people, to find excuses for their cruelty. That part of me died in that moment, and in its place, something cold and clear and furious was born. Sophia was my mother, I said quietly. My real mother. And you let her die believing her husband was faithful. You let her die without knowing she had a daughter who would grow up calling her murderer Mom. Eleanor flinched like I'd slapped her. Madison, that's not fair. And then you stole my inheritance. You stole my identity. You let me believe I was someone I wasn't for 28 years. I walked into the study and began pulling books from the shelf, looking for the safe Eleanor had mentioned. Behind a row of leather-bound legal texts, I found it. The combination was Richard's birthday, just as she'd said. At least the man I'd thought was my father had been predictable in his sentimentality. Inside the safe were documents that would change everything I thought I knew about my life. Sophia's death certificate, listing the cause as injuries sustained in a vehicular accident. My real birth certificate, listing Sophia Maria Delacroix as my mother and Richard Blackwood as my father. The will, in Richard's careful handwriting, clearly stating that half of his estate should go to my daughter Madison, born to my beloved first wife, Sophia. And at the bottom of the safe, a bundle of letters tied with a faded pink ribbon, each one addressed to my dearest Madison in Richard's careful script. The dates ranged from just after Sophia's death to 2 months before Richard died. The first letter I opened made my hands shake so violently I could barely read it. My dearest Madison, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and I pray that Eleanor has found the courage to tell you the truth. I know I should have told you myself, but I was a coward. I was afraid of losing you, afraid of shattering the family we'd built on lies. His words continued, painting a picture of a man consumed by guilt. Your mother, Sophia, was the most beautiful woman I ever knew. She was kind and funny and brave, even when the cancer was eating her alive. She loved you so much, Madison. She would hold you for hours, singing old French lullabies and telling you stories about her childhood in New Orleans. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. She never knew about Eleanor. She never knew about Victoria. I am not proud of what I did, but I cannot regret it entirely because it gave me you and your sister. But I can regret the lies. I can regret the way I let Eleanor convince me to hide your true parentage. Each word was a dagger, revealing the depth of the deception that had shaped my entire life. You are not like them, Madison. You have your mother's heart, her strength, her capacity for love. I see it in the way you care for others, in the way you fight for what's right. You are Sophia's daughter in every way that matters. There were 5 more letters in the bundle, each containing memories of Sophia and details about my first 6 months of life that Eleanor had never shared. In one, Richard wrote about how Sophia had made him promise to tell me about her when I was old enough to understand. In another, he described her final days, how she'd held me and whispered that she would always watch over me. But the last letter was different. It was addressed to Eleanor and dated just 1 week before Richard died. Eleanor, I know you think, I don't see what you're doing, but I do. I see the way you look at Madison, the way you treat her differently than Victoria. I see the resentment you carry, and I understand it. But she is innocent in all of this. The letter continued with instructions that made my blood boil. I am leaving half of my estate to Madison, and I want you to honor that. I want you to give her Sophia's jewelry, her photographs, her letters. I want you to tell her about her mother with kindness, not bitterness. If you cannot do this, if you cannot love Madison as she deserves to be loved, then I am asking you to let her go. Don't make her pay for my sins. Don't make her pay for our sins. Eleanor had ignored every single instruction, keeping Sophia's memory buried and stealing my inheritance for Victoria. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I felt something fundamental shift inside me. I spent an hour in that study, reading and rereading the letters, feeling the weight of 28 years of lies pressing down on me like a physical force. When I finally emerged, Eleanor was waiting in the living room, her face streaked with tears. "Did you read them?" she asked. "All of them." "Then you know he wanted me to tell you. He wanted me to give you Sophia's things." "But you didn't," I said, my voice steady now, powered by a rage so pure it felt like strength. "I couldn't," she whispered. "Every time I looked at you, I saw her. I saw the woman who was everything I wasn't, beautiful, pure, worthy of his love." The next 3 months were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and revelations that made my personal betrayal seem small in comparison. Harper Montgomery, my best friend since college, helped me find the best criminal attorney in Connecticut. Cindy Valdez was a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "This is substantial," she said, reviewing the documents I'd brought. "We have fraud, forgery, theft, conspiracy. The recordings you made of your confrontation with Eleanor and Victoria are particularly damaging. But there's something else here, something that goes deeper than financial fraud." While cleaning out Sophia's trunk from Eleanor's attic, I found a key taped to the bottom. It opened a safety deposit box at a downtown Greenwich bank that had been in Sophia's name and transferred to me after her death. Inside were documents that changed everything I thought I knew about her death. Medical records showing that Sophia had been in remission when she died. The cancer hadn't killed her. Insurance investigator reports suggesting that her car accident might not have been accidental. And most shocking of all, a letter from Sophia to her sister Camilla in New Orleans, dated just 2 days before her death. "My dearest Camilla, I am writing this because I am afraid. I have discovered that Richard is having an affair with his secretary. I have evidence, photographs, hotel receipts, love letters. I confronted him last week and he became violent. He has never hit me before, but I saw something in his eyes that terrified me. The letter continued with chilling prescience. I am planning to leave him and take Madison with me. I have spoken to a lawyer about divorce, and I am going to file papers next week. I wanted you to know in case something happens to me. Richard has been acting strange, asking about my life insurance policy, about what would happen to Madison if something happened to me. The final paragraph made my blood run cold. Please, if something happens to me, make sure Madison knows the truth. Make sure she knows that her mother loved her and fought for her until the very end. I fear that Richard is planning something terrible, and I pray I am wrong. But if I am right, promise me you will not let them bury the truth with me. Sophia hadn't died of cancer or in an accident. She'd been murdered by the man I'd called father, the man whose love and approval I'd spent my entire life seeking. The police reopened the investigation, and the exhumation revealed evidence that her car had been tampered with. The brakes had been cut. The arrests came on a gray October morning. I watched from my car as police surrounded Eleanor's Tudor mansion. As they led her away in handcuffs past the manicured gardens she was so proud of. Blake was arrested at his hedge fund office in Stamford, and Victoria was taken from her condo in Soho. The charges were extensive: fraud, forgery, theft, conspiracy, and for Eleanor, accessory to murder after the fact. The district attorney had found evidence that Eleanor had known about Sophia's suspicions and had helped cover up the truth for 30 years. The story made national news. Connecticut's socialite family conspiracy unravels in murder case. Today, 5 years later, I stand in the cemetery where Sophia is buried, reading the new headstone I had commissioned. Sophia Delacroix Blackwood, beloved mother, brave woman, forever remembered. I come here every month, sometimes to talk to her about my life, sometimes just to sit in the quiet and remember. Today is different. Today, I have news. I'm getting married, I tell the headstone. His name is Ethan Sinclair, and he's Harper's cousin from New Orleans, your hometown. He knows about you, about the woman who fought for her daughter until the very end. He knows that I'm not just Madison Blackwood anymore. I'm Madison Delacroix Blackwood, and I'm proud of both names. I place white roses on the grave, Sophia's favorites according to Camilla. The inheritance money, recovered through the criminal prosecution, allowed me to start the Sophia Delacroix Foundation, helping other women escape abusive relationships and uncover family fraud. My book about the experience became a bestseller, not because it was sensational, but because it was honest. The story of a woman who lost everything she thought she knew about herself and found something better, the truth. As I walk away from the cemetery, the sun breaks through the clouds, warming my face. For the first time in my adult life, I am genuinely, deeply happy. Not just about Ethan or the wedding next month, but about something deeper. The happiness that comes from knowing who you are, from living authentically, from turning pain into purpose. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with someone who needs to. Hear about the power of fighting for truth. Your support helps us bring more incredible stories of justice and resilience. What would you have done in Madison's situation? Let us know in the comments below.